It has been quite a week around here. It's never happened before, and it probably never will happen again anywhere, that four presidents were present at the same place at the same time, not just for a ceremonial event, but to actually have a speaking role. So we were witnesses to history, and I think we were all of us conscious of that this week. Those of us who were fortunate enough to actually experience it firsthand will never forget it. But it's also an event that will live on in the life of the LBJ School forever. I mean, this is now part of our DNA. And the part of the DNA that was the most special to me was a reaffirmation of public service. That's what you heard from almost every speaker in their own ways. Of course, it was an opportunity to look back at LBJ's legacy about the civil rights movement. And for me, a child of the segregated South, I felt that particularly powerfully. But also a time to look back when government was able to come together, Republicans and Democrats, to pass legislation, get things done. And this is no slam at Barack Obama. I mean, I know some of the pundits have been making that point. It's a different world. This is not his fault. But we do, as a country, have to look back and remind ourselves that we do know how to get things done in Washington. And that's what this school has always been about, of producing graduates who not only are skilled policy analysts, but who know how to get things done. They've got the skills, they've got the ethical foundation, they've got the leadership to go out and make a difference in the world, as all of you are doing before me tonight. It's been a great year for the school as well, not just a great week, but a great year. I know Chandler spoke about some of these things earlier to the alumni board. I may not cover everything, but we have launched a new executive master's program under the leadership of Greg Peterson. Where's Craig? Craig, thank you very much. This is long overdue. We were missing an opportunity to serve in Central Texas and beyond. We actually have a student commuting from way beyond Central Texas. And it was put together with the help of an awful lot of people. Chandler Stolt deserves a great deal of credit for putting this together, as does Barry Bales. It's a first-class program, and I think it will give us an impact around the state that is even greater than we have already, because we'll connect not only through our alumni, but through people who are already in positions of leadership, agency heads, deputy heads of agencies, who come into the school to get a degree that they complete while they're still doing their day job. So it's a big thing for us. At the other end of the age spectrum, we launched an undergraduate program, a bridging disciplines program in public policy. It is small. One of my ambitions coming into the school as dean 4 years ago was to get more into undergraduate teaching. I quickly learned that there are 41,000 of them out there, and if we opened up an undergraduate major, we would disappear without a trace. So we had to be very careful, but what we've done is to create a small interdisciplinary program in which students majoring in history or government or economics or engineering or nursing or whatever can get a certificate in public policy and be exposed to our world and maybe find their way back as graduate students. I hope this will segue into, in the next few years, a 5-year integrated bachelor's master's degree, so that students at UT can come in, sign up in their first year, graduate in 5 years with both their bachelor, either BA or BS, and a degree from the LBJ School. This is perfectly doable. We have launched, for those of you who have not been back for a while, we have launched in the last 2 years 6 international partnerships. That was another thing we set for ourselves early in my deanship. We needed to have a better international outreach. We needed to have more international students in the school. We needed to have more opportunities for current students to go abroad, not just students who, like me, had aspired to careers in international relations, but for everybody. Students who are doing energy policy, education policy, everybody can benefit from having a greater global preparedness, more global sensibility, more global experience. So that was the idea. And those programs are really hitting their stride this year. The biggest ambition was, or at least my biggest ambition, was to create a Washington, D.C. campus. So that we get the final approval for, not quite the final one, the penultimate approval for about 2 weeks ago, but we are all systems go now. So we will have what I think we're going to call the LBJ School Washington Center, which will be a physical presence that will give us a place in Washington and an impact in policymaking at the federal level that is very hard to have from 2,000 miles away. We've got plenty of faculty members who do nationally recognized research, but to share that research with policymakers at the federal level from Austin, Texas is not so easy. This will make it a lot easier. And it will also enable us to offer courses there so that students who apply in a special cohort will come to Austin for the first year of their experience, then go to DC for the summer and fall with a program very different from the ones back here, built around a Monday through Thursday internship or apprenticeship, and study on Friday and Saturday. It'll be very demanding, but it'll be a DC-focused curriculum, not for everybody, and really not for anybody who doesn't plan a career in DC or a career that is tightly connected to policymaking at the federal level. But for those people, it'll be just fabulous. So we're really excited. I think this will be a game changer for us. This school is already among the elite public policy schools. It was before I got here. It was so long before I got here. There's a lot more public policy schools out there than was the case back in the early days. Back in the early days, you were in the top 10 automatically. Now, there are a lot of good schools out there. Duke is a good school. Berkeley's a good school. Michigan's got a good school. Woodrow Wilson School, the Kennedy School at Harvard. There's lots of them out there. We have to hustle, and that's what we're doing. We're trying to build on our excellence, but also be innovative and imaginative about how we can be recognized as what we really are, as one of the very top of the public policy schools in the country. Let me say a word about the Alumni Network. This was a high priority of mine and of many others coming in. I think the Alumni Network had been a bit neglected for a while, not totally neglected, but hadn't been cultivated in a very determined way. We've tried to change that. Every time I think we're having great success, I become more conscious of how much more work we have to do. I was in El Paso about this time last year and looked up the alums we have out there, and it turned out that most of the email addresses were old and bad, and some of them had left. One was still there. And then I was in Geneva in January, and also there was 4 alumni in Geneva. Great, so I invited them all 4 to dinner, and it turned out that one had just left for The Hague, and 2 others didn't answer their emails because the email addresses were not valid. So we need a lot of help to build the alumni network back. I've been going around meeting with a lot of alumni. I think I've met with about 25% of all our alumni at this point, many of them one-on-one in your offices. But there's a lot of work to be done, and I really greatly appreciate the work of the Alumni Board in developing the Alumni Ambassadors program, of helping find ways to reach out to people. It's harder than I realized to really make these connections. We want to do our part, and we really appreciate all you are doing to help us do that. So it's a great time for the school. It's great to welcome all of you back, and many very familiar faces and a few new faces as well to the school. Let me now turn over one other thing that we did I'll preface this. The Barbara Jordan chair had gone unfilled for a very, very long time. And I was delighted with the help of a few people, to persuade Shirley Franklin, the former 2-term mayor of Atlanta and a political rock star not only in Georgia but around the country, to come to Austin to be the inaugural holder of the Barbara Jordan Visiting Professorship in Ethics and Political Values. She's made a huge difference to the school in lots of ways. So Barbara, so Shirley and Ariel Anib are going to have a conversation right up here. Please join me on the stage, then I will get out of the way. Ariel is a first-year MGPS student, Master in Global Policy Studies student. That degree didn't exist when some of you were here, but I think you know about it. Ariel is a Kansas City, Kansas native, taught English in Mexico, has policy interest in education, and especially focused on the Dominican Republic. So we thought it appropriate, having just come back from this really exciting Civil Rights Summit, for these two to lead us in a sort of conversation about civil rights and what it means for education and the LBJ School today.
Well, thank you. So the first thing we're going to do is move up a little bit so everyone, that's the politician in me. You have to be able to see your audience. And I'm going to invite Ariel to take her microphone. And Dean, thank you very much for the introduction. I'm delighted to be with you. Glad that you've joined us. I am much newer to the LBJ School than you are. Many of you have associations that go back a long time. So I am delighted to join you. Ariel is a first-year student, and it was our idea that perhaps the best thing that you could hear while you were here during this program was to actually hear from the students and what they're doing. And so I've asked Ariel to speak from her own perspective, but also to give you a flavor or an idea about what other students are talking about. And there's some students in the audience, so don't hesitate to push us along. So Ariel, you and I are newcomers to the LBJ School.
Yes, we are.
And it's pretty clear why I came. I mean, Barbara Jordan's legacy, her teaching here for 17 years. My first job out of college was in Washington, D.C. at the U.S. Department of Labor when President Johnson was president. I'm generally a curious person, and I'm at this stage of my life when I want to see what I haven't seen yet. And so coming to Texas was a good fit for me. So can you tell us what brought you to the LBJ School, and what did you find when you came?
Okay. How are y'all doing today, by the way? Okay. So this is going to be really honest and from the heart, not scripted whatsoever. So I was in Mexico for the Fulbright, and while I was there, I went originally because I had been to Mexico 7 times before, and I just really had a passion for the community, and my family actually thought they were saying goodbye to me for good. My going away party, it was only a year commitment, and they're like, see ya, probably in 5 years. And so when I went to Mexico, I got there and I was in this community, I was teaching in a university, and I realized that I enjoyed teaching, but I couldn't change systems as a teacher. Like, I couldn't just there was a lot of bureaucracy that I had to go through, and that that there were certain constraints that I had as a teacher. And so I was like, well, what do I do about that? I don't like being constrained. And so I started to do some Google searches. I was like, okay, it sounds like there's certain policies I don't like. So I Googled policy, right? And then I was like, well, maybe because I'm a Fulbright, something else will pop up because they say it's a good opportunity. So I Googled policy and then Fulbright, and then LBJ popped up. And I was like, what is this? University of Texas. I went to Kansas State University, and so Big 12 school. My only thought of University of Texas up until that Google search was when we went into double overtime in football and basketball. And that's all I thought. So I saw it and I was like, oh, but I'm going to click the link. And so I went and I saw the GPS program. And when I looked at the specializations, I saw international development. And I was like, So when people in the past asked me about international development is a really heavy loaded word. What does that mean? For me, I always would have said, well, I believe that education is really an important component of development. And so when I saw international development, I was like, maybe that's what I'm interested in. So I called my dad, and I was like, Dad, I really don't know what I want to do with my life, but I think I'm going to apply to this school. And he's like, what school? And I was like, UT. He goes, that's a great school, go. And he really wanted to get me out of Kansas City. So I know, should I be offended about that? I don't know. So I decided to apply, and I applied to a couple of other schools, one in Kansas City, and another one that would allow me to do a year-long program that would allow me to go to 5 different countries. And I was like, well, if I get into the LBJ school, that's where I'm going, no matter what happens with the other ones. And so when I got in, I was like, I was in shock. So I was like, wow, I made a huge commitment. I don't know. And so I I talked to a couple students here, and that was really huge from PAC, and they wanted to meet with me, and I came to open house, and I didn't know anything about Austin, right? My first time seeing Austin was during open house, and I was taking the bus, and I had been all over Austin on the bus, and I was taking the bus for like 3 hours a day. And when I was in East Austin, I told someone that I had met, oh yeah, I just was in East Austin. They go, ooh, you were over there at what time? And I was like, wait, that's your dangerous neighborhood? I love this city. So yeah, it's obviously like the program was really what got me here, but it's helpful to be in an area where like it's weird to have a murder like every other week, and so that was That's
So
what got me here.
the city mattered too.
Yeah, it did. It definitely did.
Now, what did you find when you went to classes? What did you find with, what's your favorite class? Which class so far has had the greatest impact on you, do you think?
So this semester I'm taking a class called Qualitative Methods, and it's with Dr. Morrison, and I love this course. So she just got back from Cambodia, and she really understands the critical perspective when it comes to when you're trying to do policy and you're trying to do research in policy and understanding that there are marginalized groups involved. And she's very aware of how she's viewed. So doing research outside of the United States, she talks a lot about what it's like to be seen as someone privileged because she was a university student doing her doctorate, so she saw how people saw her, and then being a woman, she saw how people saw her, and being white, she saw how people saw her, and just all those things. And just sitting in that class, I have to constantly be aware of how I'm perceived, but also what are the other groups that my research is going to impact. And so, man, I've loved this class so much, and I feel extremely nerdy because every time I get home to my roommate, I'm like, oh my goodness, let me tell you. And so I think that's been really beneficial in the other people in this class. I've never had a class with about, I would say, over 50% of the people in this course with me, and I'm like, where have you been since August? Because these people, the things that they're interested in, I think it's really important. So there's someone looking at I'm sure there's a really formal way to say it, but dumpster divers in China. Hold on, there's like a more formalized way to say this. But talking about how to make it a real profession, a formalized profession, and just like the most random topics. And I'm just really interested, and I love the variety that I see of interests in that classroom.
So many of you take that class? None of you? You do? Some of you did. No, you didn't take it?
No, yes, no.
Yeah, Chandler, you didn't take that class. It's a new class. Oh, that's good. So now you've got a
Bring
thumbs
it back
up.
next year, please.
You got a thumbs up on that class. So now, what are your other students? What are your colleague students doing? What kinds of things are they interested in?
Yeah. So I'm on the GPS side, and on the GPS side, I would say that there are a lot of security people and there are a lot of development people. So that's what's coming out of LBJ in the 2015. Let's see. So a lot of the people on the development side are very interested in aid, and specifically with what's going on with USAID, with Kate Weaver, and they're interested in looking at evaluation methods and the way that we track aid just to make sure. I think everyone wants to do good in the LBJ school, but we want to do good well, if that makes sense. Yeah, does that make sense? So this idea, it's not enough just to say, I think that we need to change this, and we need to change this, and we need to change this, but what is the best way that we can make change? And the people who are interested in aid, that is really what they're concerned about. They're evaluating how has the United States been giving aid, how have other countries been given aid, and what does that look like? Is it helpful? Is the aid even helpful? Because we like to think that we're really good at helping others, but you might talk to someone somewhere else and they'll say, actually that didn't help me at all. And so as far as security focus, there are a few people interested in the Department of Defense. And I think it's really helpful one of the things that I remember from the website when I first got on is it talked about how LBJ stands apart, is set apart because we have practitioners. And it's like, okay, so that's good, because I always told my dad is from Nigeria and he really values education. And he's like gonna have a gravestone with like every degree possible on there. And he said, he doesn't understand why I don't just want to stay in school for the rest of my life, right? He doesn't understand this. And I was like, Dad, I've had teachers who have just been in academia, and I've had teachers who've actually done what they've taught me about, like what they're teaching to me. And I was like, and I would really prefer to be that kind of person who says, like, these are the theories that I'm teaching you. Here's what I believe because I've actually experienced it. And so that's what I've noticed in LVJ faculty. And that's something that I think is really, really important, and that I think a lot of my cohort appreciates, especially the security people, is that having someone who's worked for the Department of Defense or having someone who has done various things in DC and not only has those connections and networks, but actually has a very important perspective, saying like when we're talking about game theory and they're able to say, this is a situation that I was in and this is how it turned out, and then be able to talk about game theory has been really impactful for me.
So now before we go any further, should we give her a round of applause? She's doing a great job. Ariel was worried about what she would say.
Yeah. I was like, you got my
She was worried about what she was going to say. I'd say she's got a lot to say, and was a terrific choice for this discussion. So we just had a really huge and important event in Austin at the library, at the LBJ Library and Museum, and at the school. 4 presidents, the current president and 3 former presidents, all gave major addresses using the passage or the anniversary, the 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act in 1964. And mind you, someone actually asked me, well, why weren't we doing this celebration in July? And I said, well, it's hot. I said, school is out, even though there's summer school, so we really are a little bit ahead of the July celebration. But if you use that as a backdrop, you've talked about practitioners, scholars, the diversity of students' interests. If you use as a backdrop what we just experienced, recognizing that it's hard to even imagine anything equal to that, what kinds of activities are available? Speakers, guest speakers, interactions, internships that are available to students today in the school that might be of interest to our guests?
activities. Okay, so I'm the incoming chair for PAC, which is really exciting. What? Yeah, current PAC.
Tell them what it is.
Okay, I was like, doesn't everyone know what PAC is? No. So we really deal with issues having to do with communities of color. So not only in the United States, but because I'm a GPS student, taking it global. But it's really exciting because our current co-chairs, Lauren and Rebecca, have done an amazing job by not only putting on cultural competency workshops where we've had a professor from the university come in, and we just recently had one, and he gave us a list, and he said, you have one heart, and you have to decide who gets the heart for a heart transplant. And all you get is limited data about each one of these people. So there was a woman who was 6 months pregnant. There was a guy who had said he was a 17-year-old African-American male who got into a full ride to MIT. There was a Native American storyteller. There was a 50-year-old cancer researcher, and you decide who gets the heart, right? And so this, like, I sat down and we're in a group and we have to come to a consensus, right? And it's really interesting because from a policy perspective, it's like, all the issues that happen with groups, right? Like, it's not easy to sit with other people who come from different experiences, but then everyone's trying to be practical. And then some people are taking like the utilitarian mode and they're like, what's the best for the people? And I was like, how do you decide what's the best for the people? Like these discussions are really important. And so we helped bring this speaker in and people realized, what really goes into making big decisions and that we all have these biases and we all have these prejudices, but at the same time, we all have our own sense of what is right? And how we make decisions is really colored by the experiences that we've had. That was one event that we put on. Another event that we always do every year is the UN of Food, and that's an awesome event because you get food. And I thought, I was like, well, I'm no longer an undergrad. In grad school, I'm not going to always go to every free food event, but that hasn't changed. So that was really cool. And I just love how professors and faculty and administration have really joined with the student organizations at LBJ because I was meeting with a professor right before this event, and he's like, yeah, I'm about to order Jimmy John's. And I was like, why would you order Jimmy John's? There's going to be food from all over the world downstairs. Jimmy John's you can get any day. And I was surprised to see him come down, right? Because I didn't think I was that convincing, but he did. And so just like different events like that get the students engaged in issues that face people of color, and even just going to like Casa Marianela, where it's has anyone heard of Casa Marianela? Yeah? Yeah? Okay, cool. It's really awesome because they take in different refugees, immigrants, people who are passing through, people who need a place to stay, and so we cooked dinner for them. And that was good for me because I love meeting people from all over the world, but on top of that, getting to spend time with people from PAC who are passionate about not even the same issues, right? Some people are very interested in the minimum wage debate, or some people are interested in healthcare, and some people are interested in all these different things, but to say we're going to come together and we're going to serve the community, and knowing that at Casa Marianela we get to have a domestic impact because they're here, and we get to have a global impact because they're not from here. And like that's something that I really love, and there's a lot of things to get involved with at LBJ that I'm just opposed to just coming to the classroom and leaving. Like I'm not that kind of person. Anyone who knows me, I'm not that kind of person. I believe that graduate school is not what it's meant to be if you just park your car or your bike or your bus pass or whatever, and you just walk into the class, listen, you do the readings, you come in and spit theories that someone else gave, and then you leave. Like that's not enough. But to truly engage and really make a difference, I think policy-wise, you have to engage with the community that's around you. So,
Pretty cool. There's some other students here. So could all the students stand up, all current students? Just so you get a chance to see that there's a cross-section of students who are here. And we want to thank all of them for coming as well. Well, so now what are the challenges of coming to the LBJ School? I mean, you've made it sound as if, oh, I get accepted, I come, I can get involved, they're great programs, they're people I'm interested in, or they're interested in a lot of things that I find interesting. Do you have any challenges?
Yeah. I'd say the first challenge about being at LBJ is because it's grad school. So any challenge that comes with being in grad school, right? Trying to understand, because I teach as well, so like trying to juggle teaching and extracurricular responsibilities along with doing all the work and doing it well. That's the important thing, doing it well. And then on even more so than that, I mean, I still face the same challenges as I did in elementary school, junior high, high school, undergrad as being a person of color, right? Like that's not gonna go away. And so being in light of the anniversary, right, of the Civil Rights Act, and being from Kansas, we're really proud, right, of Topeka, Brown versus Board of Education. We're really excited about that. Like we talk about it every single year. And I was sitting at home and I was thinking about it. I was like, okay, so what did the Civil Rights Act do, right? What did it do? It helped end segregation, it led to the Voting Rights Act, all these things that it did. But how did it change the experience of people of color in the United States? Well, like on a, I guess, if you look at it face value, it made it so that you could go to the same bathroom as other people, right? It got rid of certain, I guess, de jure, discrimination, segregation, but I think that the experience that students still have as people of color still exists, right? So being at LBJ, whether I'm at LBJ or any other school, I'm still going to experience what is it like to have to speak for my ethnicity, right? What is it like to talk about issues of diversity and feel silence that you could break, right? Like that's not going to go away. People are still uncomfortable with talking about different issues facing people of color. That hasn't changed. Well, now I can't be put in jail for it, maybe, or I guess it's changed in some ways, but it's still awkward. And I think at LBJ, I've found people who said, I know it's awkward, and I'm still gonna dive into it with you. And then there's some people who are like, yeah, it's awkward. And they just kind of walk away and they stop talking to me because they've realized that I'm not gonna stop, right? I don't shy away from a difficult conversation, and I think it's conversations that need to happen in LBJ. And it's been really interesting because within the last 3 months, there have been multiple students asking, why don't we talk about diversity? Why don't we talk about these issues? And that's been exciting, but I'm saying, okay, let's stop asking why and let's just do it. If we're gonna be the get it done, school, then we need to get it done and talk, And so that's something that's been difficult, but I think I would like to say that things hopefully are changing slowly. I don't want to say things are difficult and just stop there, but I do see things changing. Now people aren't just shying away from it, but they're standing there and trying to engage, and that's something that I think is really important.
So do you think President Johnson would be proud of the school?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, I got to go to the panel talk for, oh man. Did anyone get to go to any of the panels? Because I didn't get a presidential address, but man, I was...
There's some over there.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I got to go to the panel, and it was being able to... It was like watching a documentary, but live, right? So they're like, yeah, I was walking by, President Johnson's office, and he said this, and that was just amazing for me to see history come alive. And they were talking about his desire, how he came from the South, and he just really had a desire to see things different. He wasn't okay with the status quo. He saw what was happening in the South, and he wanted it to change. And I would say he would be proud of LBJ because he would see in this school that we are engaging with the issues that he was passionate about. And I think, yeah, he'd be really proud, and I think he'd be really proud of the alumni because I've gotten to meet some of you and the things that you guys have done. You guys are my role models. No, but it's really amazing that when I leave here and I meet an LBJ alumni, they're like, oh, I'm an alum, and people get excited. If I met an alum and you're like, oh, yeah, you go there, I went there, then I probably would have changed my mind about coming to this school. But the fact that you guys are like, yes, and I've been asking a lot of you, how has it helped you how has LBJ helped get you where you are now? And people are like, yeah, it didn't teach me exactly how to use this computer program, but it taught me to think in this way. And I think that's something that's really important, is that LBJ does help mold you to be an independent and innovative thinker. It doesn't mold you to be a certain type of thinker, right? Because if you do that, you're not going to really make much change because you'll think like everybody else. So I think LBJ would be really proud of the students that LBJ produces, the students that LBJ is producing, and how LBJ is constantly understanding that we are not perfect, right? So we're like, well, we need to get more students of color, so how are we going to do that? The fact that administration is saying this is important, that's a big deal to me, because I know when I graduate, I want to make sure that administration every year is saying, I think this is important, because that's something I believe is important, so.
That's pretty good. So now you have all of these alumni here. What would you have them do for the school?
other than, I mean, give your time, right? And give your money. No, but seriously, no, because, no, I'm not kidding. No, but I think, so the opportunity that I've gotten to network with alumni has been really important because you guys know way more than I do. I graduated from high school in '08. Yes, so graduated from college, undergrad in 2012. So I haven't lived much life. I don't know really a lot of things, like I know some things, but I believe your experience is it's really, really valuable. And then on top of that is that if there are certain issues that you care about, if you say you want to see more diversity in LBJ, if you say that you want to see more professors that are female, if you believe that certain faculty should come from, I don't know, different perspectives, then, I mean, all these things, as policymakers come from money. Like, if we don't have it, then it can't happen. And so I think that's something that's really important, but I want you to know that it is an investment. And so as a student here, like when I meet an alum and they're like, what are you doing? And they're asking me questions, like, it means so much, right? It means so much because I know that you care, and not only that you care about how I do, but you care about how I contribute and what impact that my contribution is going to make on like the greater, not just the United States, but if I'm a global policy student, you know it's going to have an impact. Hoping that it's going to have some type of impact in the world. So I just appreciate all of you, and I appreciate you taking the time to even come here and listen to a 23-year-old who thinks she knows something, and just taking the time to actually say that, like, I care about the student experience, and so, yeah.
How about it for our great Ariel Anib? Thank you, Ariel. You did great. Thank you so much.